Hey, what's up, how's it? Aloha, it is me, Makani. Welcome to Culturalized. This is the space that we share and we learn and we teach and we just, talk about culture, whether it's ethnic, whether it's native, whether it's social. I read somewhere that culture is anywhere from a group of 10 or more people doing, believing, practicing the same things or beliefs, and that's what it's all about. And today, I'm so excited because we're talking about, you always hear the term art and culture, and how I always wondered, when did culture become art? When is art culture? Or when is that? The perfect person to bring on and talk story with me about it. Kelly McHugh-White, aloha. How are you?
Aloha. Very good.
I just got to say mahalo for doing this. You're our second Zoom, and you are on currently where?
I'm in Wailuku on the island of Maui.
Man, my favorite place. My favorite place in the whole world, Maui, and you're in Wailuku, and it's funny because people are probably looking at your background, going, Wailuku, you look like, it must be Wailuku. You look like you're in like Kula, like somewhere at the Kula Lodge.
Yeah, we've got a pole house and I'm in the loft right now, but we are right in the heart of Old Sand Hills in Wailuku. So yeah, very lucky.
I love it. So we're going to be getting into art and culture. For you though, born and raised, and what high school you went to?
Yeah, well, born and raised in the suburbs of New York City.
Wow.
Went to Mayapack High School, so just outside of New York City.
Also, not right in, right? It's because it's
Not right in.
It's a whole different culture if you're in New York.
The five boroughs are very, very similar in the different cultures and identities of the Hawaiian Islands, for sure.
And even growing up in New York, right outside the city, is it a huge difference? My grandmother, Native American grandmother, is from upstate New York. She was Iroquois. But see, a lot of times for local people, we think New York, and we just think New York City. It's like when we go to the West Coast, people, you could be going to San Fran, people are like, oh, you're going to LA? They think the state of Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Was it a huge difference where you grew up in New York and New York City?
I would say it is, because I did end up living in New York City for about 10 years. But my folks, my mom's from Manhattan, my dad's from the Bronx. We spent a lot of time in the city. They just really wanted to raise their children in a place where they could ride bikes. So we were raised in the suburbs, and we spent a lot of time with our cousins and our family in the city, and we felt like it was pretty different. Yeah.
I like that. What your first relationship or your first connection to Hawaii was what?
Yeah, my first relationship while I was studying post-grad work, I was earning a degree in arts administration, which is nonprofit arts management. And almost all of my studies in management, in mission building, in finance, led me to the Hawaiian Islands, because at that time there were more nonprofits per capita than any other state in the United States.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, I think the statistics have changed till today, but at the time, it was just my field, appealing to nonprofit communities to build, arts-based young people and elders as well. That was always my field. And so I had a really good friend that I had studied abroad with in Dublin that was living here. And I thought I might do an independent study and figure out what is all this nonprofit energy all about and what makes it work so well here. And I had come and done an independent study, finished my studies back in New York with the Brooklyn Arts Council, and then returned here full time in 2008.
Was your conclusion, was it partly just because we're very community minded, or was it we want to take care of each other? I'm interested, now that you said that, I'm really interested in finding that out. Why are we such a nonprofit driven community or state?
Yeah. I mean, those are statistics, right? That led me here. And I guess I had to dive in and do a deeper independent study on that. But for sure, I mean, like in the city, you've got pockets of communities and neighborhoods that kind of stay within those pockets. And here in Hawaii, even within the Hawaiian Islands, not just from Wailuku to Paia, right, to Waikapu, but from Oahu to Maui to Lanai, people are so interconnected, either by family or by the culture, right? There is more of a unified culture here, right, than in other places where here's an Italian neighborhood, here's an Irish neighborhood, here's a Puerto Rican neighborhood. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you stay on that side of the street, I'll stay on this side.
Kind of, I mean, there's certainly still intertwining, but here really like a solid value here in my experience in my 13, 14 years living on Maui is that it's all of us for all of us, right?
Like
it's
that.
a very we-based
culture. Very, we-centric. Now, you've been on Maui 14 years. Lucky. I love it. And is this going to be home now?
It is, yeah. I met my husband. We got married 2 years ago. We bought this beautiful home. He's born and raised here, so we are very happy to dig our heels in and make our own roots.
I love that. So if you're joining us, welcome to Culturalized. We're talking art and culture. There's projects everywhere. You see it lately. Public art. That's what we're talking about. We're sitting down with our good friend Kelly McHugh-White, and we're going to get into all these murals and all these things that you're saying. When did culture become art, or how important is art into culture? We're diving into that right here on Culturalized. Bringing you what matters. Viewers can receive the Star Advertiser digital full access subscription for just $9.95 per month. Go to staradvertiser.com and click on subscribe. Use the code AHIGHTHING. Hey, welcome back to Culturalized. My name is McHugh. We are diving into art. We're getting creative, sitting with Kelly McHugh-White. Now, you're on Maui, and you've been there for 14 years. Have you always been an artist? What's the first thing you remember? The first thing you remember about art when you realized, wow, this is kind of cool. And what medium was it?
Yeah, ever since I was a very young kid, my parents were giving me coloring books and construction paper. They just always wanted to keep us really busy and out of their hair, right? And so my brother kind of got into forts and toys and, playing with other kids. And I got really, really heavily immersed in painting and drawing. So from a very early age, my teachers told me it was something that I was gifted at and just pushed me as hard as they possibly could into that area of my studies. So it happened to me, right?
Do you remember the first thing you actually drew or painted?
No, I can't say that I do, and I'm sorry. I wish I did, but my parents aren't the type like today's parents that kept every single work of art or framed it, or told me that.
We come from the same era. My mom literally cleans out her house like every year. Even if like it could be your baby teeth, it could be high school diplomas. She's like, gone, it's gone. Nobody cares. Right? Like, wait, what?
Right.
It's like that thing that I had on the refrigerator, that little drawing. No, that's gone.
Yeah, they never kept a thing. But I can say my dad used to bring home these gigantic refrigerator boxes from work for my brother and I, and turn them into like miniature houses for us and give us a set of Sharpie markers and said, go in there and make some wallpaper. I'll see you in 3 hours, and we got to make all of our own designs and that kind of sticks out. That was really
love that. Brother builds the fort and you do the designing.
Exactly.
That's amazing. Now, so talking about that, okay, so you got into art, you're an artist, and we're talking about when we were young, we did these things, we were creative. Crazy. I never thought I'd ask this question. How do we get kids to do that? Who? Yeah. Because a lot of times people say, okay, you become an artist, right? Some people just have it, some people don't. But there's influence, right? Get the kids off the phone. What's the biggest obstacle right now of getting kids to put down their phone and build a fort?
Yeah, I think it has to come from parents or teachers, right? So it has to come from the role models that they are exposed to on a daily basis. And I think multiple adult role models are really important to get kids interested, right? We can't put it all on mom or dad, and we can't put it all on teacher, auntie has to help, or, your ballet teacher, maybe some of the influencers, your cousins, your siblings, you'd just have to make sure that if a kid is showing some kind of interest and promise, that you're there to help cultivate that for them. And that early exposure is what really, really helps, because we find, I've worked with young kids in the arts for several years in the past, that earlier you can get a kid to express themselves and just let it be self-expression. It doesn't have to be a writer, Picasso, right? It doesn't have to be a really specific project. Just get them to feel that sense of empowerment and that sense of kind of translation. Kids have all sorts of feelings and ideas that they don't really know how to express through language. So if you give them an instrument or a set of paints or a block of clay, or studio space to move in and just let them be, it's a good start.
What do you think about, okay, with that said, but giving them an electronic pad to do that? What are your thoughts on that as an artist? With kids? Good, not good, it's, happy medium?
Yeah, I guess there's a happy medium. It's difficult for me because I've read so many studies on how detrimental electronics are for kids in early childhood development.
Say that
However,
again.
there are some, right? There's a lot of studies showing that it's probably not the healthiest activity for a child. However, they're not going anywhere, right? These electronics aren't going anywhere. And there are some up and coming apps, really specific apps that are meant only to hone in on a child's early creativity and ensure that they're making something with that time other than, shoot, bang, bang.
Of course, I love that. See, art as education as well. So if you are joining us, this is Culturalized. We're talking art in culture of art. Some amazing things that Kelly McHugh-White has been doing on the island of Maui. And thank you so much for joining us. We're going to talk about that in just a few seconds. Small town, big art. Think about that on Culturalized. Aloha Termite and Pest Control, your local and leading pest and termite control solution in the state. Always providing you superior service with Aloha. For all your money needs, Hawaiian Financial Federal Credit Union is here for you. Visit hificu.com. That's hi-fi, letter C, letter U.com. Welcome back to Culturalized. Art and culture is the talk story today. We've got Kelly McHugh-White with us. Now, you've been doing some big things. Small town, big art. That's what it's called, right? Think about that if you're joining us. I'd say within the last, in Hawaii, probably the last handful of years, I said maybe 10 years, art has become public. Because I remember, growing up as a kid, and maybe you as well, the only time we were really exposed to art was you had to go to a museum. I love the fact that art now has become public. I love the fact that you see, and it's not just a 11 by 17 frame hanging on a wall that you have to stand behind a red velvet rope and be like, wow, that's amazing. I don't even know what it means. But you're doing something that is making art public. It's making art educational. It's making art cultural. Why is art so important to culture?
Ooh, yeah, good question. You'll get a different response from anybody that you talk to. Yeah. But I would say within the context of small town big art, I feel like what we do with this public art program, which is really distinct from other public art programs that we've studied throughout the nation and the world, is that it's really important for us that the sense of place of where the art is going to live is setting the base, is setting the guidelines, setting the criteria for what that work will become. So, for example, we have works of art. We have 23 works of public art throughout Wailuku right now, and each of them are closely tied to an olelo no'eau, a Hawaiian proverb that is selected in partnership with Haleho Ike Ike at the Bailey House Museum or Maui Historical Society. So the executive director of Haleho Ike Ike is one of the three core partners of Small Town Big Art, and she works at Sissy Lake Farm. Perfect. Incredible, incredible human being and mentor and friend. And she really spends a lot of time once an artist is selected to be part of our program, and they're selected by community panel to ensure that what they're creating has roots in where it's going to be, whether that's on a wall, on a stage, or moving, maybe a sculpture that's moving from place to place throughout Wailuku. And what we're hearing from people in seeing this connectivity between a proverb and the artwork is that the story comes alive, the connection to the culture becomes alive. And what Sissy says is we're taking the words of our kupuna to heart and ensuring that their voices are heard in this really special place. And we're just hearing really positive feedback from our community, whether it's folks that understand, the book of Olelo No'eau and its intense meaning, or it's people hearing these proverbs from the first time. They're asking questions, right? What is the translation of that proverb. What does it mean? Why does it matter to the artist? And why is it here? And with small town big art, that is such a goal of ours, to ensure that we're spurring questions and dialogue. And we want to just keep that dialogue rolling.
I'm blown away just by that. I'm a hardcore. I'm Olelo no Ia book every day. I have problems, I open it up. That's my Bible, basically.
Yeah.
I would just, what is it like in that creative process when you're sitting with Hale Ho'ikeike and you folks and the artists, and you're like, okay, let's pick this Olelo no Ia, let's pick this one. I mean, is it very organic? Is it, I mean, it's hard. I know it's
totally
hard to
organic.
explain.
Yeah.
Yeah,
in the first, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm amazed at that process.
Yeah, we've had 2 rounds now of small town big art. So for round 1, when we put out our RFP, or our request for proposals, and asked artists to apply for the opportunity to be a part of this, Sissy had pre-selected a handful of Olelo no Ia that she thought were really deeply rooted in Wailuku. And artists picked one and brought that into their piece. For the second round, we all said, whoa, like things are just changing way too much, from the point of meeting the artist to meeting with our community panel to workshop what the theme of the art's going to be, to execution of the artwork. I mean, these are months and months that pass by. And Sissy recommended that we make it a much more organic process of diving into that text and finding what's right for all players involved, right? Rather than using it as a menu.
Which is a perfect example, again, of a Hawaiian culture. Everybody is going to lokahi and come together on this. Small town big art, we're going to... the murals that you guys are creating, the vahipana, the sacred places. If you're joining us, welcome to Culturalized. We're talking art and culture. We got to thank our good friends of Kaimio Kekai for supplying me with some amazing, speaking of art, the designs on these clothes, amazing. More right here, art and culture on Culturalized.
Tropical Wholesale, home where vinyl is final. Call us today for our latest specials at 808-592-2000. That's 808-592-2000. I'm
all excited because we're talking art and culture. I like to call myself not an artist, but I like to doodle. I like to do a lot of things. And now, art, really quick, it's anything, right? Whether it's any medium, paint, crayons, pens, anything that you can create. Is that a fair definition of art?
It can be. I would take it a step further to say one is self-expression and the other might be art. So there is a bit of a nuance there.
I like that. As we talk about small town big art, the Vahipana, or the sacred place of Wailuku, is where you started. If you've ever been to Maui lately, you're going to see these murals and the placement of these murals, like that even blows my mind. Like you look at a wall, and you folks as artists can see something and go, there's something missing. There's a blank wall, but there's no life on it. The fact that when I went to Maui, I looked at these murals and thought to myself, if I didn't know Wailuku, if I didn't know Maui, if I was there for the very first time, just looking at it would already tell me where I am. You folks did murals of a lot of important people on Maui. Auntie Hoku, right? You did a mural. How many artists right now that applied? Because you said you have to apply. How many artists have you folks gotten?
Yeah, well, we've reviewed over 100 applications, and we've worked with, at this point, I think 34 artists total.
All over the world?
Well, it's a Wailuku program, and I would say that's 90% local Wailuku artists and 10% visiting artists. So we've had artists from Philadelphia, Spain, Canada, New Zealand, and everybody else is Wailuku based.
Now, to explain small town big art, the concept, if nobody... I mean, people hear about it, but if they've never heard about it, how would you explain small town big art? Because to me, small town big art, to me, small town big art. What would you tell somebody about small town big art?
Yeah, I would say it's a creative placemaking project specifically for Wailuku, Hawaii. And we're hoping to see Wailuku become a public arts district that is focused on its distinctive sense of place, history, and culture.
Now, this is going to be the other side of it. How do you do that? How do you find somebody? You walk up to their building and be like, your wall outside? Can I put a huge mural? Is that a difficult thing?
It can be. I've begged for sure, or we have to apply social capital, right? So it is my husband Lopaka and paddles with, your son so-and-so who knows your uncle. What do you think? So the first time they might say, who are you? Right. And then you kind of have to explain, you got to do the roll call, right?
I love that. Again, the culture in art. That's the culture in art. Remember, doesn't your auntie's friend who used to go to the store, own that building? Is it, do you find it that people, it's a weird thing, I think. You're going to walk up to somebody and say, hey, can I paint on that wall outside of your building? Do they think you're just going to graffiti it? Do they think you're just going to... I
think initially that was maybe some of the feedback that we got. But luckily, we're up to, I think, 14 we have 23 works of art and 14 of them are murals. And I think people are now seeing the super high caliber of professionalism in the art. So we don't work with emerging artists. We only work with established artists, right? So it's either going to be a well-known person in the community or they have points of reference now where they understand that, okay, this is going to be high caliber work.
Biggest mural so far in Wailuku?
Oh, that would probably be Eric Oakday. He did at the Main Street Promenade, which is the Maui, the MAPA building.
Yes.
And that one's called Where Work Is, There Is Life. And that mural is basically a Valentine to the world of performing arts within Wailuku. Initially, it was meant to highlight Maui on stage, Maui performing arts, Maui theater, but it turned into, over the process of working with Haleho Ike, a huge history lesson in the sugar workers that came to Maui and all of the art and culture that they shared with Wailuku.
We're going to find the stories behind these murals and behind these paintings. Art and culture, you want the extended version? Join us on YouTube. This is Culturalized. Thanks a lot for joining us right here on Culturalized. My name is Makani. This is where we talk and share culture. Small town, big art. We've shared the importance of art and culture and vice versa. Wailuku, Vahipana, sacred place. Soon, I don't want to say soon to turn into a public art. It's always been Wailuku in and of itself. The buildings, the just the feel of the place, and you guys are going to even take that further. So again, how many projects so far with Small Town Big Art?
Yeah, we've had 11 public projects, which have resulted in 23 works of public art.
Nice, and the biggest one, of course, the MAPA building. What some of the artwork, and hopefully you'll be able to see them on the screen. What one of your favorites, you personally?
Yeah, the very first one that I worked on with an artist named Andy Burley, it was called Lost and Found, and it was a one night only work of public art. So it's not something you can see live anymore, but we do have the film on the Small Town Big Art website. He is a light work artist and wanted to recreate a stained glass window from St. Anthony's Church before it was lost to arson many, many years ago. And so we had to put a call out to the community to see if we could find these stained glass windows and color photographs through the newspaper. And we got all sorts of people trying to get together and share their photos. And we had tours of the church and the school there. So many community members came together. And what he did was instead, he found the outline of the stained glass window that he wanted to recreate. But instead of using just color or stained glass, he took video footage of 14 different points throughout the Wailuku River that runs through Wailuku town. And every little shape of stained glass has a different piece of the Wailuku River that is running through it. And that is the ultimate light work. And it was chicken skin, intense, beautiful.
And we can watch that on is Small Town Big Art just going to stay in Wailuku or stay on Maui, or what's the goal? I'm excited for this thing. I would love to see every single building everywhere.
Yeah. We're seeing a lot of demand for it in other neighborhoods. And so we went ahead and incorporated as an official 501c3 nonprofit, and that's called Maui Public Art Corps. We've got our own mission, we've got our own board of directors, just so that instead of relying specifically on county funds or, federal fund investment and begging for grants year after year, we can start making a really solid, fund development action plan and ensure that we can make this Maui County-wide.
Who do you think started the whole craze of murals in Hawaii? See, I think Wyland, right? But I also think graffiti artist.
Yeah.
In your opinion, who do you? I know but who do you think of when you think prior to this new culture of public art? Who do you think was some of the innovators?
In the state of Hawaii, I look at Powwow, right? I think that they're doing beautiful work. I've worked with, what is his name? 808.
Oh,
his name is escaping me right now. He worked with my kids when I was at Hui No Visual. Prime. His name's Prime.
Okay.
He does 808 Prime. He's done some incredible work on Oahu. Estria Foundation has done some really beautiful, incredible work. Yeah. I think for Maui, this seems to be the first big movement, and we're hoping that it continues to grow. We don't want to own public art on Maui. We want this to kind of be a platform for other folks to ensure that the movement continues. And
that's what I like about the movement, because you have put a lot of cultural thought into it. Like the first thing you said was, sacred place, Wahipana, Wailuku, and the projects and the murals reflect the stories of that place. I'm excited to see it go to other small towns. Now, this is probably the business side of it. When it becomes public art, yes, it's owned by the public. Now, do you guys have to insure like artwork like that, murals, or you just put it up and it's there?
Yeah, the copyright for the artwork lives with the artist. So the small town big art doesn't own the copyright. So for example, we had a musician reach out to us and say, I want to use your murals in my liner notes of my upcoming album. And I said, go straight to the artist, right? So that's for the artist. We have to get permissions and insurance to paint on a wall. So that's between us and the private wall owner or the public space where that artwork is. There's a lot.
That's a lot of, I don't want to say red tape, but that's a lot of protocol just to get an art piece. Now, what happens when you put a mural up is do you make a deal with the building owner and just say, listen, you can't be painting over this thing next year? Or
no, they can be painting over it next year. I think that all public art is meant to be seen as temporary, right? It really is, because it's not our spaces, right? Maybe it's Request's music wall, or maybe it's a county park where we did our latest installation. And that's, the county gets to decide what happens next at the park, and Request's next gets to decide. It's their space.
Right.
But we have seen our first mural that we worked on, my partner Erin Wade and I, when I was with a different organization, was put up in 2012. We thought that would be painted over in 2 years, right? But it's still there nearly 10 years later, and the community has really embraced it. And we see it everywhere, right?
And I think
social media.
I think that would probably be a difficult part, because the creativity never stops. Right, the creativity never stops, and I guess that's the beauty of it, is that it's not like it's in a museum and it's going to be hanging there in perpetuity. Public art is if you don't catch it, you don't catch it. You know?
And a big part of this is about community revitalization. We want people coming to Wailuku and asking these questions and seeing these stories. And if you don't come now, you might miss out, so that I think is a really exciting part of public art too. It's a right now movement.
If you could do small town big arts besides Wailuku in any other town in Hawaii, where would you choose?
Ooh, I have my sights set on Kahului right now. Nice. Oh my gosh, there's just so much space. And so many interesting stories and such an interesting history. I know it's just right next door, and it sounds like an easy button, but it just sounds like the biggest challenge. A lot of the other small towns within Maui have really set identities, But Kahului, I think, could be a really fun challenge for us.
Now that you say that, I think about it. Kahului, it doesn't really have. I mean, I don't want to say it doesn't have an identity, but it's just Kahului, right? Yeah. It's just Kahului. Like you've got Main Street in Wailuku, you've got the theater. Now that I think about Kahului, got the mall. That's it, right? Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Outer Islands. What about the Outer Islands? What?
Yeah. So Maui Public Art Corps, the nonprofit, will be the county-wide. So I've already spoken to Kahoʻolawe, and we have some friends on Molokai, and we have some friends on Lanai. So hopefully, but we have to be invited, right, Makani? We can't just say, here's something wonderful that we think. Being
from Lanai, can I invite you?
There. Yes.
I'm gonna go. I'll talk to my mom. I'm like, Mom, just go tell the guy. Just invite them. Kahoʻolawe, that's interesting.
Yeah.
What? So, what would you do? Like, what would you think of? Would it?
Ooh, well, I spent 5 years working for the Kahoʻolawe Island Reserve Commission, and my husband has been there for 16 years now. And we're very, very close with the staff and the commission there. But yeah, I think it's really important to talk about the history. I mean, so many people are focused on the military history of Kahoʻolawe, but there was a whole ranching era before that. It was a penal colony before that. There is a deep, long history that got that island to the predicament that it's in now. And I think it would be really interesting to tell a greater story about the historic movement there.
Do you think if you did a project on Kahoʻolawe, people rarely get the chance to step foot on Kahoʻolawe, right? Do you think they would allow that I could see this project, and then you just invite people over by small boatloads, right? Hey, come check this out. It's got to happen one day. I mean, or they just got to experience the fact that you got to bring your bottle of liquid ivory and go. If you've been to Kahoʻolawe, you have to bring that. What would you do? Like, what kind of would it be? Would it be a painting? Would it be what kind of project would you do on Kahoʻolawe?
Yeah, well, what Mike Nahoʻopi'i, the executive director there, who's an incredible artist, very artistic, he pitched the idea to me once of just doing an artist residency there with multidisciplinary artists, maybe sculptors and painters and poets, and have them there as a gathering space to write, just kind of be in that space, gather that mana, and then go back to their respective locations and create works of art in their home communities that are inspired by Kahoʻolawe.
People don't realize. When are you still actively projects yourself, personal art projects yourself? Like,
am I an artist? Is that what you're asking?
Are you still painting? Are you still doing things like that? I mean, because now you're in the business side of it. But to keep yourself within, do you still find time to paint, to draw, to do anything creative?
Yeah, I have an art studio in my house. So when I can, I'm still painting and drawing, but my discipline has really switched over to creative writing. So I've become more of a writer in my recent years. But I think that has a lot to do with the fact that I write for a living. So it's just become second nature now, and it's a beautiful outlet. And I feel very lucky that I'm able to take that time to do it, because you need to take care of these things all the time.
Say that again. Thank you so much. Mahalo for making time, sharing small town big art, not only with me today, but with Wailuku, with Maui, with the state. I hope, and I can't wait, I should say, to see all these other towns and all these public art displays and projects getting even bigger and bigger. So mahalo for what you do. Go get that. Send some Maui vibe to us. That's what I need. And there you go. That's what we need here. So once again, if you're joining us, this is Culturalized. We talking art and culture. Culture is art and everything that surrounds it. Next time you're on Maui, go to my favorite town of Wailuku and check out all the art projects that Small Town Big Art is doing. Kelly, mahalo. Thank you. This is Culturalized.